You are listening to the Nottingham Recovery Network podcast, where we tell true stories of people who've walked the path of recovery and hear from those that supported them every step of the way. Real people, real recovery, real hope.
It's cool, man. So how are things?
Good. Yeah, it's, like you say, it's a big change since I first went to Nottingham. But yeah, it's been nearly 2 years now. 2 years in September since I went into treatment.
Is that it? 2 years now?
In September, yeah.
Well,
I don't screw it up.
no chance. If we can just do it like a bit of a timeline sort of thing, and it's just what you're comfortable with, mate. But looking back, like before you come to Nottingham, what was your sort of substance use history?
A long one, really. If I really think about it, I would say I was always around alcohol and drink because not that my parents are alcoholic, but with everybody just constantly in pubs, and it always seemed to be around that. I never saw a problem with drink. I think I started drinking quite early, maybe 12, after school and what have you. Then from that, this was back in mid-90s, so it then on a weekend as I got a bit older, maybe 13, 14, be sort of smoking. It weren't weed then, but cannabis, resin.
Yeah.
And then that just led to other things on a weekend, sort of LSD were a big thing, their knees, whiz, stuff like that. But there were no addiction issues really around that, I don't think, other than maybe beginnings of alcohol use. But then when I was maybe 15 or so, we introduced to heroin, and then I couldn't get enough heroin out of it. So from 15 all the way up to, I don't know, I'm 44 now, so all the way up to maybe 41 and a bit, I always use heroin or method. If I had a period where I'd been into detox or something like that and I was off heroin, I was still on methadone. And then I always found that if I did try and get off the heroin, the use of other substances just quickly replaced that.
Sure.
Crack, coke, eating more alcohol. And so I was an addict to class A drugs and alcohol from, 15, 16, all the way up to going into treatment at like 42.
When you were 41, 42, you came to Nottingham. Where were you before that? Because for keen-eared people might recognise you haven't got a Nottingham accent there.
No, so I'm from Barnsley in South Yorkshire. That's where I grew up. I was born in Doncaster, but I grew up in Barnsley and lived in Barnsley all that time. I weren't sort of, I don't want to sound like derogatory or anything to anybody, but I weren't sort of like a street junkie or completely down and out in Barnsley. I did college. I always worked. Certain things happen in your life, don't they, when you're in addiction? But basically, I always worked right up until sort of COVID time. And then I don't know what happened at that time. A friend who I'd known since school, he would dealing drugs in the town. So I kind of just stopped working, moved in with him, and we just sort of sold drugs, and it got really bad. My habit and everything that was going off around that.
Were you in treatment up in Barnsley?
I'd been on a methadone script. I came out of prison in 2008, and I went into prison on the methadone script. And I detoxed in prison, and then when I came out, very quickly got using stuff again and got back on a methadone script. So when I came to Nottingham, I'd been on methadone script for maybe 12 years.
What sort of level did you get to? What sort
I think you're about 70 mils for years and years a day. And then when I came to Nottingham, the first time I met you, they actually said they would send a script down because I'd just left all that behind. I think I realised I had to do something to change things, but I don't know whether it was running away or just, I don't know. I kind of just knew I had to get away from there because there were no, years ago in Barnsley, I'd been in detox a couple of times, like a 10-day, 12-day detox thing. But for years, I would just go to the service place, pick a 6 weekly script up, normally at the same time, needle exchange, so they didn't care, and that was it. I obviously knew of rehabs and I knew what they were, but I'd never known anybody going to one from Barnsley. I thought if somebody didn't pay for it, then it just didn't exist.
So things sort of came to a head in Barnsley,
Yeah.
and you found yourself coming down to Nottingham. I remember meeting you and saying, "What brought you to Nottingham?" And you said it was the cheapest effing ticket.
Yeah, the cheapest train fare, yeah. Something kind of told me I just needed to leave Barnsley, and I don't know, luckily I ended up in the right place, I think, for me anyway.
Yeah. So tell us about coming to Nottingham. What happened? I know the story, but people listening won't.
Yeah, so like I said, we'd been selling drugs and whatever, and one night I just had enough of it, so I used whatever I had, and then just decided in the morning I'd book a train ticket somewhere. Like you sort of look for usual places, don't you? Where you know you're going to find those like Leeds, Manchester, Sheffield, whatever. And Nottingham was the cheapest ticket that morning, so I left with whatever I had with me, like a few clothes in a rucksack, whatever money and bits of drugs I had left on me, and that weren't much at all. I think I had a couple of bottles of methadone left because it'd been a weekend. I'd saved a couple of bottles up, something like that. Yeah, just got a train to Nottingham with no more plans than that.
Well, I think we found you like the day you arrived, was it?
It might have been day after. Just sat begging really in Nottingham town centre. And I didn't have a clue what to do. Didn't really know anybody.
And so the process of like engaging with RSDAAT, what was it? I think we found you on outreach, and then what happened, mate?
Yeah, I think it was you and a colleague. It was really easy and it was really good. So there were just a lot of options straight away for meeting RSDAAT too.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to go back to Barnsley. Within a couple of days, you'd arranged for me to go to one of the centres you have in the city centre in Nottingham, and start on a methadone script down there.
Yeah. So I think one of the advantages we have, or certainly back then, we were one of the first RSDAAT, so rough sleeper drug and alcohol treatment teams in the country. And a big part of RSDAAT was always outreach. We came across you in town, and we've been really lucky as a new service that we got NMPs who dedicate some time to us, and we could get you scripted pretty quick. And then, so we got you on a script, and then you were still homeless, weren't you?
Yeah. I can't remember exactly how long I spent in Nottingham. I mean, it seemed at the time to take an age, and it was really, I don't know what I was expecting, but it didn't take that long at all. Really, it helped me get somewhere. I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 months, I think.
Yeah, I think you've probably got to tell the story about going to that housing place, mate.
Oh yeah, I don't think Richard will ever get over this. We went to East Midlands housings. We went in to do an interview, and there were youngish. She was only young, weren't she? Youngish girl, and she asked if Richard were my dad. And I think I'm about a year older than you, Anna.
A year older, and you'd been homeless 3 months, so I must have been looking pretty rough that day, man. But so we got you housed, and then I think me and you started talking about rehab at about that point, didn't we?
Yeah, I think I'd always mentioned it to you. I think I don't know. I think you wanted to see, really, didn't you, what had happened if you don't know a person, do you, when you meet them? But yeah, I started talking about rehab, and I know, well, Richard and the RSDAAT team put a lot of work into to get that sorted out eventually, didn't it? But yeah, I just had to. I think it's like anything else. If you really want something and you're willing to sort of jump through them hoops and engage with people, it's engaging with you, isn't it? That's the main thing.
Yeah, man. It's always been, we love sending people to rehab when they need it. Nottingham Recovery Network, we absolutely love it. For a lot of people, it's the best form of treatment. And people talk about jumping through hoops, but like you say, really, it's a bit of engagement, isn't it? I think we asked you to go to some groups and stuff. And
yeah, I can remember attending some groups up at the centre near the castle. And then, other things, making sure you stay to your scripts, submitting your own tests. But I think honesty and just engagement with yourselves is looking back. I think that's the biggest thing. Because well, I know how much work it takes for you to get somebody into rehab. And it's months and months of meetings and paperwork and all sorts of stuff, and it's a waiting process, isn't it? But in that time, you both have to, you'll need to know you're doing the right thing, and the person needs to know they're doing the right thing, and I think that's why the engagement part of it is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I say NRN, we like to send people to rehab that if it's the right treatment for them, but it's not an endless pot of money, so there is a process that people have to go through to sort of show that they're ready and that they want it.
Yeah. I mean, I knew I needed something. I wanted something. But like I say, having no sort of real engagement with services or knowing what was on offer, I knew I just had to take something. Because I honestly believe if I'd not met you, Richard, and the rest of the team, but you specific, I honestly don't know where I would have been at. Probably two places, dead or locked up, because that's the only way it was going.
I mean, that's very kind of you to say, Matt. But the reality is, all we did as NRN was give you opportunities, and then you grabbed them, mate. So,
I think a lot of people don't know those opportunities exist. So I think that's a very important part of RSDAAT, just being visible. Because people come to Nottingham and other big cities, won't they, all the time from, well, like me, from places that don't have anything like that. And some people do want to change. And if you don't know what's available, if you're not given that opportunity, you can't take it, can you?
And I guess that's why we're doing these podcasts, just to let people know that help is available. All you've got to do is walk through the door, and that's where the process starts. Or if you can't walk through the door, RSDAAT as the outreach team will come and find you. So we got you signed up for rehab, but there was the little matter of detox first, wasn't there?
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I mean, looking back, I had a good thing actually in rehab. Somebody who was a friend of mine now, he went into the rehab and he was coming off methadone and whatever else, and he was really, really struggling. And he was basically begging the rehab staff for something, to take the edge off his withdrawals. And one of the counsellors in there had said to him, well, it never worked before, so that's how I kind of look at that detox now. Thinking about what that counsellor said to him, it was a new way of doing it. So it was very, we had to reduce on the methadone before I went in, and I didn't actually take any the weekend. So when I went in on the Monday, they could basically start me on a Subutex sort of reduction detox fit. They could start with that almost straight away, the same day I went in, more or less. Once I had the Subutex, I obviously felt a lot better. But then once that started reducing, like rapidly over the next 5 or 6 days, I think it was horrendous, and ended up where I went days without any sleep. But you can flag it off all you want, but it did work in my case, so it can't be that bad.
I have some experience of detoxing, not from the same substance as you were, but in a way, I look back at mine, and I think I had to go through that physical pain. I had to go through the mental pain to sort of get to where I am now.
The pain of opiate withdrawals physically is shit, but but you do it, don't you? You keep doing it and going back and going back. And I'd never really looked at the mental thing because I'd never had a long enough break off anything. Because I think you're so, in my case, so busy just trying to get through that detox, and then you just, you always promise yourself, oh, do detox, and then just have, you deserve a hit, you deserve something, and then it just leads you straight back to it. But the benefit of leaving the detox, going straight to the rehab, you didn't have that option, so you then have to face this mental, you have to face reality. You mentally have to deal with everything, don't you? Sober.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were in detox for about 2 weeks, weren't you? I think.
Like 15 days or something. Went to death.
Okay.
You actually picked me up, Richard, state me, didn't you? So
at NRN, the way rehabs work, we only ever use CQC registered rehabs. They always have to have like a good rating. And we sent you down south, didn't we? You had a nice one by the beach.
Yeah, on the seafront, more or less. Yeah, I think that one actually, it was only one of two that had an outstanding thing in the country, the CQC, and it was self-empowerment rehab. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
But I think even though it's self-empowerment, it's still very based on a lot of these AA or CANA principles.
Mm-hmm.
And really, if you think about it, it's just how you should live your life, you know. I think a lot of it's just common sense, but obviously the drugs and drinking and everything take a big part of your way, don't you? You know, it's just about being right with other people and being honest and doing the right thing for yourself as well.
Mm.
You know, I think although we didn't have to do all the steps, a lot of it was based around the steps. You could see a lot of parallels.
And I think, you know, for people who don't know that might be listening, and fellowship programs such as AA, NA, CA, you know, they work off a thing called the 12 steps, which is basically 12 suggestions, if you like, of how to live your life. And I don't mind saying that I'm in recovery myself, as a lot of people who work at NRN are. And, you know, for some reason, I'd either forgotten about these 12 rules or suggestions, principles, yeah, or for some reason I hadn't really learned them, or I certainly didn't pay attention to them much. And for me, rehab was a massive learning experience, learning about myself and about the way the world works. Was it a similar thing for you?
Yeah, I think you know what you should be doing, even if you have worked and stuff. As an addict, you lose any real sense of structure and routine, don't you? That's a big thing, you know, just simple things like getting up, making your bed, and cleaning up after yourself, and you get into such a routine with it becomes important. It's the little things like just not swearing or being polite to people and not being sexist or racist and all the rest of it that comes with it. I think it does give you a decent grounding in how you should behave, how people expect you to behave.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big help with rehab.
And I mean, that's some of the practical stuff, but also there was a lot of therapy involved.
Oh, yeah. One of the counsellors had the saying that you leave your baggage here. And I did, and I think that was very important. So what they mean by that is anything, they had a big thing about trauma. All addiction can be traced back to some form of trauma, and it might not be what you imagine.
Doesn't have to be a big thing necessarily.
No, it can just be your dad not turning up at football theatre because he was working, or a grandparent dying. You know, normal, everyday, natural life can cause trauma, and I think that was the thing I had a problem with, not talking about it to him. So I didn't see what help that would do.
Hmm.
But it does. If you talk about things, you can talk about one thing and it'll open a door, and then it's like baggage on a conveyor belt. You're just dropping it off, so that's what the therapy is about. Really, it's just talking through incidents in your life, and by talking about them, you know, or even I ended up drawing pictures and stuff. Just finding some form of communication to get that trauma out. You're not leaving there with it, because it's those things that will, I believe, in my case, because I saw a lot of people that lie their way through rehab or think they were saying the right things. You know, you see people that hold things back, and they'll tell you in there, you know, probably 90% of people will go back to addiction. And in my experience, it were people that wouldn't talk about things or weren't honest or that took some of that baggage away with them. You're taking stuff, so it's harder for you to move on.
Yeah, you're still carrying it with you on the outside, isn't it?
Yeah, and eventually you're going to open it, and you know, that's when you'll start, you know, using something to cover those feelings up or hide that trauma, isn't it? And I think if you get it all out there, it might be hard, but it's definitely worth it in the end.
What about sacrifices you had to make? So you went to rehab for like 6 months, and I'm guessing you leaving some family behind and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I left children and mum behind in Barnsley when I left Barnsley. I didn't tell anybody I was going. I just went, but it got to that bad a stage. I weren't seeing the kids, weren't living there, weren't living at my mum's, weren't seeing my mum. The only time I tried bringing my mum was for money. So, it got to a point where she'd phone the police if I went there to her house. Kids would scream and bawl if I went to her house to see them. But I just carried on regardless. It wasn't until I actually got to rehab. But, well, no, I think in Nottingham, because I was using a lot less and staying to the script more, a lot better than I had been, more or less.
More or less. Yeah.
A lot better than I had managed in Barnsley anyway. In my case, anyway, I started thinking, about missing your family, your children, parents. But it wasn't until actually in rehab, when you're clean, that I started missing them, trying to make contact again. My mum would talk to me, and my daughter would, but the boys wouldn't. My mum and the kids came down to see me when I was still living in that town. And that was the first time I spoke to one of my sons for, a couple of years.
Just on that, Matt. So after rehab, you stayed down there for a bit, didn't you?
They had like supported housing. That's the rehab I was in. It had 4 or 5 houses that. Oh, I can't remember what they call them now. Oh, they call them dry houses. So they're basically like supported houses. So they might have 5 people in a house. So you've got it's like a shared.
Yeah.
A shared house, but they're actually run and owned by the people that own the rehab and a couple of the counsellors.
Yeah. And so is the idea like you're all accountable to each other?
It's basically like being in the rehab, but you can come and go as you please.
Right.
They had the thing called TDs, they were called.
Therapeutic duties.
Therapeutic duties in the rehab. So that then continues into these dry houses, so I think my job was to clean the kitchen in this dry house. Somebody else would do the bathrooms. You all have to look after your own rooms. But then the counsellors would come once a week or they'd pop in now and again and you'd have a bit of a therapy session with them once a week. And I think for me, I think I stayed in one for about 5 months. And for me, knowing that you're in the real world and you've got that option of going and having a drink or a drug or whatever, but there's consequences.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bright enough to see there will be consequences to it, I think that really helped, just adjusting to being back into society. I got a bit of a volunteer job at an art place. There's a word I'm looking for and I can't find it. Sort of being, if you say you're going to do something, you do it.
Yeah. Being reliable.
Yeah, being accountable and reliable. Yeah.
But in active addiction,
you're just not, are you?
No, we're not known for it. So after the move on, I believe you met someone and now live with someone and.
Yeah, I met Natalie and then moved to. Natalie's from South Wales, so that's where I'm living now, and working down here.
And what are some of the things that have come back into your life? I know, like you've mentioned your kids briefly.
Yeah, kids, and I don't see them all the time, obviously, because they live a couple 100 miles away. But they're in my life, and that's more. They know I'm there for them. That's more important than me being there every day, pissed up or whatever. That them knowing that they can rely on you now. So that's a big thing. And just being able to go and see your parents or whatever, and I think you forget as an addict, they have stuff to deal with in life, don't they? We all have stuff to deal with. And then when they're constantly worrying about what if your son's going to rob her from as soon as they're in the house, or if they're going to be found dead in the morning, or just seeing the weight lifted off family
Yeah.
is a massive thing. Gone back to doing a job I never wanted to do, but I'm quite enjoying it at the minute. That's maybe because you'd get through work, wouldn't you, as an addict? You'd turn up and because you need the paycheck, I suppose.
Yeah.
And you'd do it, but everything was stressful, everything was a nightmare. And I don't find that now. I quite look forward to doing some work. So, I can remember my dad saying to me, he once took me to this interview, he took me to have taken me on the first morning of the job, and I'd probably not had any gear that morning or something like that. And he said, "Oh God, aren't you enthusiastic about it?" And it's like, no, you're not. You're just not. Nothing matters when you're in addiction, and I think that's the big stuff matters now.
That's beautiful. Stuff matters.
Yeah, and it does, doesn't it? You have stuff that matters. Before I couldn't give a toss about anything, and I suppose if you've been completely honest with yourself, you don't give a toss about anyone either. But now that's changed. Like, and I have a friend now, and he keeps relapsing, right? And I try and tell him, you've got to give yourself time because we're not patient as addicts, are we?
No.
And it's very hard if you're clean for a few months and you've not got X, Y, and Z, or you're not here, there, or wherever you want to be. But you're never going to be there by falling off the wagon, are you? You're just going to keep going back to the start.
Mm.
And I think that's the big thing I've learned. If you want anything worthwhile, you have to work at it, don't you?
Absolutely. And so, RSDAAT is still running. We were the service that first engaged with you, man, and Nottingham Recovery Network's just getting bigger and bigger. Like, anyone listening who maybe has like a family member struggling, or maybe someone's struggling themselves and listening to this, what advice or suggestion could you make for those?
I think you've got to, both sides have to be honest with what you want and where you want to go with it. Like I said before, I think honesty, look at what you want, decide what's for the best, and then again, it's the engagement thing, isn't it? Reach out. The people there will help you. There is stuff to offer, but you have to, I feel it has to be for the right reasons. I feel, if you're somebody who is an addict and your mum's pestering you to go into detox, or your partner, and you're just going to go and say yes for, a quiet life for a month or two, it's a waste of everybody's time. That's my advice.
Thanks, man. Listen, all of the team here are so happy that you're doing so well. We're all like dead proud of you, and thanks again for doing this for us. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll see you in another couple of years, maybe.
I hope so, yeah. Thank you very much, Richard.
Cheers, buddy.
See you later. Ciao.
Thank you for listening to the Nottingham Recovery Network podcast. If you or someone you know are looking for support with their relationship with drugs and alcohol, we are here to help you. Visit www.nottinghamrecoverynetwork.com for more information.